Hi boys and girls. Today we're going to be doing a close reading video together. Now remember that when we closely read a text, we're closely reading so that we can understand. So as we're reading, we're going to remind ourselves of our close reading strategies. We're going to be annotating the text and we're going to be stopping to think and to comprehend and check what we understand. So here's our teaching point. Readers closely read for meaning. So what do? Readers closely read a text. How? By setting up the genre lens and annotating. Why? To understand the text. So today we're going to be doing a few things. We're going to closely read by setting up our lens first and then annotating as we read. Then we're going to stop after chunks of text to think about what we understand or what we've noticed. We're going to watch the close reading video, follow along as I annotate, complete your close reading response after you watch the video. You must watch the video first. Here's a reminder of what we do when we closely read. Step number 1, we set up the genre lens. We have to ask ourselves, am I reading nonfiction or am I reading fiction? Step number 2, we annotate based on the genre. If we're reading fiction, we're going to be looking for traits, characters, problem, solution, and feelings. If we're reading nonfiction, we're going to be looking for the main topic, the details, important keywords, and we're going to be looking for teaching pictures. We're going to stop to check our comprehension after we read a chunk of text. So we're not going to read the whole thing through without stopping to think. And here's our success criteria. This is what tells us if we're doing our work well. Did I label the genre? Did I annotate all parts of the text? Did I check my comprehension? So let's get started with reading the passage that I selected for you today. So here's our passage, and it's called, the title is A Winter Surprise by Deborah Hopkinson. But the first thing that I'm going to do is read the directions because the directions will help me to set up my genre lens. Read this story. Oh, I'm reading a story. Let me underline that. Story. I know that when I'm reading a story, I'm reading fiction. So let's set up the genre lens together. We're reading fiction. What are some things that we think about and pay attention to when we read fiction? We said that we look for the characters, their traits, problem, solution, and feelings. Sometimes we might even look for lessons. I'm going to add that one in. So as we read this story, these are the things that we should be on the lookout for as we're reading fiction. We need to look for the characters, their names, their traits, what we know about their personality, the problem of the story, the solution to the story, character feelings, and maybe if the characters learned a lesson. A winter surprise. One cold day, Mariko and her dad were walking to the store. I think I just found some characters. Let me underline them. We have Mariko and her dad. One cold day, Mariko and her dad were walking to the store. I'm tired of winter, said Mariko. Oh, I can tell that Mariko really doesn't like the winter time. So I'm going to underline that. Dad waved at their neighbor. I bet Mr. Hill wishes spring would come too. Oh, readers, did you notice what I just noticed? I noticed another character, Mr. Hill. Dad waved at their neighbor. I bet Mr. Hill wishes spring would come too. Mariko looked up to see Mr. Hill in his window. He waved, and she waved back. Mr. Hill loves his garden, said Mariko. Mr. Hill had the prettiest spring flower garden. It was full of tulips and daffodils. I think the author put that there for a reason. It must be important. So I think I'm going to underline that Mr. Hill had a pretty spring garden. Mr. Hill had the prettiest spring flower garden. It was full of tulips and daffodils. Dad nodded. Yes, he does. And since he is old, it is hard for him to go outside in winter. The streets are too icy. I think that's something important to notice about Mr. Hill. The author put that there for a reason. So I'm going to underline it and see if it connects to anything later on as I keep reading. He is too old to go outside for winter. That's making me think about this title, A Winter Surprise. Maybe this has something to do with a surprise for Mr. Hill, because surprises are usually something that happen that you don't expect. And it's a surprise for the winter time. Let's keep reading to find out if we can connect anything else. At the store, Mariko helped Dad choose milk, bread, and carrots. You may choose a treat for yourself, Mariko, said Dad. Oh, so Mariko is now someplace else. She's at the store and she's getting to pick whatever she wants. I think Dad is generous. He's going to buy her something. Mariko thought an apple would taste good, but suddenly something else caught her eye. She pulled on Dad's sleeve. Oh, Dad, look, daffodils. Dad smiled. Is that the treat you want? Mariko nodded. So now we can tell the treat that she decided she wanted. Oh, Dad, look, daffodils. Is that the treat you want? Mariko nodded. So let's stop and think what's happened so far. They're at the store picking up some groceries, milk, bread, carrots, and Dad tells Mariko that she can get a treat for herself. She wanted an apple, but something else caught her eye. Daffodils. And Dad says, is that what you want? And it is. So I think Mariko found her treat. Mariko couldn't stop looking at her daffodils all the way home. But when she got to Mr. Hill's house, she stopped. She looked up at the window. Oh, I'm noticing that at first she was feeling really happy to have her daffodils. But then she stopped. She looked up at the window. I'm thinking that she stopped and looked up at her neighbor, Mr. Hill's window. But I wonder why. And I wonder what that has to do with the title, A Winter Surprise. Wait here, Dad, please, she said. I'll be right back. So Mariko's on her way to do something. Mariko rang the doorbell. When Mr. Hill came to the door, Mariko held out the daffodils. Mr. Hill's face lit up like the sun. What a wonderful winter surprise, he cried. You have brought me spring. Wow, I think something big happened there, but I definitely think I need to go back and reread and annotate so I can make sure that I understand what happened in that part. So here, Dad gives Mariko a treat, and she's really excited about it because the text says she couldn't stop looking at her daffodils. So we can tell that she was really happy about them. But when she got to Mr. Hill's house, she stopped and she looked up at his window. And then she told Dad to wait here, that she'd be back. After she rang that doorbell, Mr. Hill came to the door and Mariko did something. Mariko held out the daffodils. Mariko held out the daffodils. Mr. Hill's face lit up like the sun. Oh, I can tell that's special language to show that Mr. Hill was very, very happy. What a wonderful surprise. What a wonderful winter surprise. Oh, just like our title, A Winter Surprise. What a wonderful winter surprise, he cried. You have brought me spring. What just happened there? Let's stop and think for a moment. In the beginning, the story was telling us that Mr. Hill had a beautiful spring garden. And then we also learned that it's hard for him to go outside in the winter because the streets are too icy. But down here, we see that Mariko brought him something that he loves, spring flowers. Are you starting to make a connection in your mind? I definitely am. When Mr. Hill says, you have brought me spring, that was the winter surprise. Let's look at what we were supposed to pay attention to as we were reading. Characters. We know that our characters are Mariko, Dad, and Mr. Hill. Let's look at the problem. Do you think you know what the problem is? Stop and think for a moment. Let's go back to the text together and find the place where the problem was. Did you find it? I know you did. Right here. And since he is old, it is hard for him to go outside for the winter. So let's label that as the problem. I'm just going to put P for problem. And I'm going to move it right here. We found the problem of the story. But what about the solution? Whenever there's a problem, there's got to be a solution. Let's go back. Take a look at the text. Skim and scan. Did you find it? I bet you did. You have brought me the spring. Did you notice that his problem was that he was too old to go outside in the snow and the ice to go get pretty flowers? So Mariko brought it for him. Let's label that solution. And we'll put it right here. So readers, let's do a recap. Today we were closely reading the text, A Winter Surprise. We know that it's a story, and when we're reading a story, it's fiction. So these are the things that we need to be on the lookout for. Characters, traits, problem, solution, feelings, lesson. The title, A Winter Surprise, told us that there's something happening in the winter that's going to be a surprise. We know that Mariko and her dad love the spring, especially Mariko because she says, I'm tired of winter. And Mr. Hill loves spring too. He has a beautiful spring garden. But he has a big problem. He's old and it's very dangerous for him to go outside in the winter when the streets are too icy. So on the way to the store, Mariko and Dad were doing some shopping and Dad told Mariko she could have whatever she wanted. She chose beautiful daffodils and she was very happy about them in this part. She couldn't stop looking at her daffodils. But then she thought about Mr. Hill. And it doesn't say she thought about Mr. Hill, but we can tell by looking at this part. She looked up at the window. When she went to the door, Mr. Hill opened it and she decided to give him those beautiful spring flowers. And that's our solution. Mariko brought a winter surprise of the springtime to Mr. Hill. Readers, I just want to remind you that whenever we closely read, we definitely set up our genre lens, we annotate the text, and we stop after a chunk of text to think about what we noticed. So after this video, you're going to go and complete your reading response, your exit ticket for close reading. You can play this video again, watch the annotation again, and definitely look at the annotation chart to help you as you do your exit ticket. Bye for now.